My name's Irene, and I'm looking forward to this last session in April. The good news is that we're going to continue in May. May, the focus is going to be on posture and pain relief. And even if you've come to all the April ones, there'll be some new lessons. Sharon, you have a question? Oh, whoops, let me unmute you. Oh, it's not letting me. There you go.
Are they going to be at the same time?
Yes, same time, Tuesday, Thursday.
Sign-in?
Yeah. Oh, the sign-in. That's the not so good news. That the link is going to change, and you'll need to go through Eventbrite again with Northwest Parkinson's Foundation, and you'll get the new link from there. Mira will be sending out emails and information on that.
Yes, for those of you whose emails we have, we're going to send it out as email as well as the Eventbrite page to log in from. So we'll update it, and thank you. And of course, everything is free from Northwest Parkinson's, so there's no charge.
Thank you, NWPF. It's nice to have that. Scott.
Do you have to sign in for each session individually, or can you sign in for like 4 or 5 in a row?
I think it does allow you to do both. We do like to know individually, so as we can keep up with our numbers from our side to know how many people to expect. But I think you are able to do them all together on Eventbrite as well.
For people like you, Scott, who show up at each class, doing it once for the month seems reasonable. Yeah. Okay, so we have a couple new people today, and I'm curious, from those of you who have been coming all month, what do you remember of the ground rules? What are the most important things while doing this class? I'd like to hear somebody else say them.
If you're in pain, stop.
Yes, that is the number one thing.
Or
if you're
back off.
even in a little bit of discomfort, stop rather than pushing into the discomfort. Feel free to ask me a question, and we'll see how I can modify it to make it work for you. We're working on learning coordination, and that takes feeling safe in order to do. What were some of the other things that when you started this class felt like, oh, this is different than other classes I've taken?
If you can't make a movement because it's too hard for you to do, then just imagine in your brain that you're doing it, because that still prompts your brain to be thinking about that part of your body.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nina. That's exactly it. And last week when we were doing, Tuesday when we were doing things, and it was hard to reach feet to do it, and we would do the same movement in the hands, and then the foot could imagine it. The brain could imagine it in the foot better. Yeah.
Thank you, Irene. Could I ask, you are recording the session?
Yes.
Thank you.
And
I just wanted to add one more thing, which is I was doing Feldenkrais before this class started, and I joined because of Bill's Parkinson's. And the way that you have taught this, where you take each individual part and then you make it all into a whole, is really key to this, because I've been learning how to rewalk for the last probably 4 months, because I had pronated feet and braces and all that when I was a kid as well. I think Steve mentioned the same problem last time. But last session when you said, imagine your 4th toe and pressure on your 4th toe rather than your big toe. And I started walking doing that. That has been the most dramatic change in months for how I walk now. And because I was always aligning my sternum and my hip and my knee and my foot, but that key piece of the 4th toe, which seems so subtle and so small, just was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
it's pretty hard to support your head when you're rolled in onto your big toe. And, but the only way that we can learn how to walk that way is by getting our torso moving. And that's what we're going to work on in today and in every class. Yeah. So a couple other things that are different in this class. I tend to ask a lot of questions, and I don't need you to answer them out loud, but answering them to yourself is how the process of Feldenkrais works to improve the communication between your brain and your body. And if I ask you to do a movement, I want you to do it several times, not just once, because each time you do it, you get to pay attention to a different part of yourself. And like Nina said, the the goal is learning how to use your whole body as a team rather than any one piece of it. And so when you do the movement many times, you can go, is my knee participating? Is my hip participating? And it makes the learning deeper and makes it stick better. All right, so this whole series has been focused on balance and walking. And I want to do a lesson today that pulls together some of the things that we've done for this month. And it's going to involve standing up behind your chair. And so you can stand up and hold onto the back of your chair for balance. If you have a walker, you can stand up and hold the walker. For some of you, standing isn't an option. And if that's the case, just come to the front of your chair and sit at the front of your chair. Now, it's helpful for me if you can adjust your camera so I can see your torsos. Ideally, I can see like your hips up to your head. That way I can see if anybody's getting confused by the instructions and clarify. And it makes it easier for me to keep it safe for everybody. So thank you for that adjustment. So if you can stand behind the chair, even though that'll block my view of you, rather than having your chair off to the side, that will be better. Okay. And today we're going to focus on shifting weight, but we're going to include all the things that we've talked about in other classes. So just begin now to shift weight a little bit left and right. And notice how you do that. What part of you moves the furthest? Do you move your shoulders further or your hips further? Or does your head go even a little further than your shoulders? Okay. And then pay attention to how the weight goes into your feet. Go slow if you can, because when you go slower, it's easier to sense. You can really feel which part of your foot starts pressing harder as the weight comes into that leg. Okay. So we're gonna do it. I see several ways people are doing this. Some of you are holding your spine like a stick and your shoulders tip over as you go. See if you're doing that. In fact, everybody try doing that a little bit. You might want to hold on, because if you go too far, that's a way that leads to tipping and falling. The other way you could do it, and I'm going to stand up for a minute so you can see my middle, is that you take your hips a little bit further than you take your shoulders. Okay? But when we walk, we don't really do that. That would lead you to a very strange walk. So there's a third way of shifting weight, which is to take your hips a little bit to that side and then twist your belly button, twist your chest, and feel how that makes the weight come into your foot in a different way. Because if you just take your hips over, you feel how your weight goes to the very outside edge of the feet. But if you take your weight partway over and turn your belly and bring your other hip forward, the weight goes into the foot a little different. Now there's some subtleties to this. The more you come forward over the foot so that you feel the weight go into the front of your foot and your toes lengthen. Play with that sensation of you take your hips sideways, you turn your torso, and see if you can spread the toes on that foot a little bit. We're just pick one side to start with. So you're just shifting into that one side, and stay with your weight on that foot for a moment. And your foot has 5 toes, and you could think of a stripe going from each toe to your heel. And I want you to experiment and put your weight let's all put our weight on our second toe. And just tip back and forth between your heel and your second toe. And then your heel and your big toe. And then your heel and your third toe. So you're taking your hips a little forward and back, rocking over your foot, and then over your fourth toe. And even when you're wearing shoes, you can feel that it's really very different when you aim for different toes. And when I say aim for the toes, it's more direction. We're not coming all the way up onto our toes. I'm not teaching ballet here, but just to shift to the ball of your foot under the base of the toe. Okay, rest for a moment. And as you rest, see if you have more weight still on that foot. And if it somehow that side of your body feels a little calmer. So now shift your weight to the same side and notice how you pass over those rays of support in the foot. Because when you first come into the foot, the big toe takes the weight. And then you can roll across the ball of your foot until the weight is just under the fourth toe. That's what Nina was talking about this morning. And even when the weight goes out to the fourth toe, the big toe, the ball of the foot can stay on the floor. Just this little shifting. Now, notice if you get taller or shorter when you shift onto this leg. Zoom is pretty cool because you can look at your own picture and you can see, does your head come up in the screen? Okay, and then come back to the middle. Now you could shift over that way like we were doing before. We're thinking of your spine as a stick. And everybody try that. And you'll see you end up getting a little shorter when you do that. And sometimes you'll see people walk and it's really exaggerating, but there's this big side to side with the head. And that way of walking is going to lead to falling more. But if you can find a way to get tall over your foot, it means your pelvis is over your foot. And then you've got like this tree trunk that's just solid under you. Okay, go for a little walk in your space. Just take a few steps to feel if you feel more secure on that leg that we've been transferring the weight to. That foot might feel different as it connects with the floor. And if walking is difficult, you could march a little in place. Some of us have very small spaces that we have to work in. And holding on to your chair so you can feel secure, if you can, close your eyes for a moment and sense if one foot feels different on the floor than the other, more connected, spread out more. We're going to keep going on this side for just another moment. So shift your weight onto this side and hold on to the floor like you're an eagle. Press your toes into the floor. And just feel what changes in your body when you press the toes into the floor. You might feel your hamstrings engage in the back of your thigh. Something in your neck might talk. Okay. And then take the toes and spread them. And the bones in your feet go all the way back toward your heel. So the spreading starts up by your ankle. And when you think about spreading your toes, think about spreading it from far back in the foot. And if you spread your hand at the same time, you can feel it spreads your toes. I was reading an interesting article in the paper yesterday about drone research and trying to get drones to be able to stick on the side of buildings. So you could imagine you live on the 10th floor and the pizza delivery comes to your window, and the drone comes and has these little feet like a gecko that splay and connect to your window and passes the pizza in. Well, our feet are like that. They need to be able to be wide and broad as the weight comes onto them. If you're comfortable without shoes, you might kick off your shoes and just to see if you can feel that. Sometimes our shoes keep our feet from expanding. Okay. Now, when you shift your weight this way, so you're taking your pelvis, putting it over your foot, turning your torso a little bit, where is the weight? Is there more in the heel or more in the front of the foot? And could you easily lift your heel? Try taking your weight so far forward that you might be able to lighten that heel on the floor just a little bit. Trying to roll up a little bit toward the base of the fourth toe. Good. And come back. And just stand for a moment. Sense any differences in sensation left and right. Do the sides of your neck feel different? Are you breathing more on one side of your body? This getting organized over our feet makes it so that our bones can hold us up, and then we have more ability to breathe. So right now you're a little more organized to breathe on one side. So let's go and play with going to the other side and transfer your weight over to the other side a few times and see what your default pattern is. Like I just noticed looking at myself on Zoom that as I transferred my weight there, the shoulder dropped a little. My right side is my challenging side. That's where I've got a herniated disc and some other problems from broken bones. So I have to remind myself, if I take my pelvis over the foot and then I turn my torso, then I get taller. And then go back to doing it how you were doing it. And then try the new way of taking the hip and then turning the pelvis. So if you had a drippy nose, it would drip right on your toes. Because when we're walking, if our nose drips on our toes, we're stable. If our nose drips in the space between our feet, then we're going to be unstable in the walking. And the only way you get there is that turn. You got to turn your torso to get your nose over there. So you put your weight on your foot. You bring your nose over your toes. And now with your weight on this side, begin to go out those 5 rays. So you can transfer the weight from the heel to the big toe and back, the heel to the second toe and back, to the third and back. Seeing if you can sense each toe lengthening as you put your weight into it. So it's like this is a way to stretch out the toes at the slightly different angles. I don't know if baby geckos do this or if it just happens naturally to them, but we're training our feet to be more like gecko feet. Good. Rest for a minute. Come back to the middle to rest. Okay. And let's transfer our weight up onto that foot again. Second foot. And pretend you're an eagle and try and hold on with your claws. That's what we usually do if we're not getting our weight all the way over to the foot, the toes do that to hold on. But if we can get the pelvis over the foot and turn the body, see how now that lets you lengthen the toes. Okay. So now come back to the middle and take your weight from side to side in this way where you turn your belly, you bring your hips over and you turn your belly a little. You come back through the middle, you get a little shorter there. You might even bend your knees, soften a little bit. And then you bring your hips over and you bring your chest and your head over your knees. It has a little bit of a feel of dancing. And you could make it a little bigger and lighter for a moment. One of my favorite practices of Feldenkrais is every day when I usually run the dishwasher at night and I unload it in the morning. And there's the sense of I can reach down and then put the dish away. And there's this dance as the weight shifts and the torso turns. Yeah. Now I want you to begin sensing what your feet are doing as you do that. Because there are two ways to do this. One way to do it, your feet do this kind of motion. Let's everybody do this in your feet. So I could shift my weight over there with my foot doing that. And for me, that gives me a little sense of like launching into space. The other way you can do it is by, for a moment with your feet, lighten the inner edge and press down under the base of the fourth toe on both feet. And then as you shift your weight to the side, on the leg you're leaving, keep your weight under the fourth. And you might not turn as far when you do that, but feel how there's a security, like you're rooted to the ground as you're coming up on one leg and coming up on the other leg. And that sense of rootedness gives you stability. You can really feel how your feet are this base to be able to transfer weight. Okay, so now we're gonna up the demand a little, make it a little more challenging. And for those of you who can, I do want you to hold on to your chair for this part. Because what I'm gonna have you do is cross one leg over the other. So both feet are on the ground, they're just next to each other. Some of you who have had hip replacements, this may be against what the doctor says to do, or if you have a knee that doesn't let you do it, don't do it. If it feels okay to do it. If not, just keep your legs straight. And now in this position, where your right foot's on your left and your left foot's on your right, begin to take your hips a little bit left and right. This is why you're holding on to your chairs, because it's a strange thing to move the hips. The shoulders go the opposite way the hips go. So if my hips go right, my shoulders tip left. Good. And undo that. I want to talk about this tipping a little bit with our feet not crossed for a moment. So if I want to take my hips left and my shoulders to the right, my head has to tip a little. So do a little experiment. Take your hips left and your shoulders right and tip your head just a little bit to the right. Good. See how that when you tip your head, it lets your hips move a little further. If I tipped my head left, and you could go ahead and try this, tip your head left and try and take your hips left. It takes your whole body to the left and it takes you too far and it makes you unstable. But the head counterbalances the hip. Yeah, this is great. I'm seeing some really nice side bending, because that side bending, the ribs on the side my shoulders are going to are squishing together like an accordion. I'm squeezing to play the music from that side. And the side that my hip's going to, those ribs get big. They spread out. Good. Let's go to the right with the hips. You take the hips to the right, and if you tip your head to the left, your shoulders can go to the left. But if you leave your head tipped to the right, when you take your hips to the right, try it. It's like it doesn't feel so good. But if you tip your head left, the hips can go right. So let's cross again. And with your feet crossed, take your hips one way and your head the other way, so that you can feel the ribs compress on one side and lengthen. That alternating compressing and lengthening. Good. And now, still holding your chair, stop that and begin to move the weight into your toes, into the ball of your feet, more the ball than the toes, and then back into your heels. And in order to do that, your bottom has to move forward and backward. This is really, really critical for fall prevention, because if your head and your bottom move the same way, that's when you're going to fall. So if you bring your pelvis and your head forward, you can feel how you have to press hard on your chair to catch you. And I'm not going to have you do it backward, because I don't want you to fall over backward. But if you take your bottom, and you could really exaggerate this, you could push your bottom way back, and your head just naturally then can come forward. And if you press your pelvis forward, then your head can come back a little. We have, uncross for a moment. You know those punching bags that you punch and they just pop right back up to vertical? It's like we're trying to make your body that way. So if you get a little off balance, you know how to do the counterbalance so you don't go down on the floor. Let's cross the other foot in front, which will probably feel really strange. We have a habit of how we stand cross-legged, even if we don't do this very often. And begin to take your weight left and right with your head going opposite your hips. So it's like this part of you, for women, the bra line, for men, the middle of your chest is going further over with your hips, so that you feel the ribs squeeze on one side and lengthen on the other. Good. Uncross and rest. Check in with yourself on how you're doing. Are you really staying out of pain as you're doing this? You're doing the movement small enough, comfortable enough to feel pleasant in the body. Cross the second foot over again. And begin to shift your weight forward into your feet so that you feel your toes lengthen a little. And then the weight in your heels, but when the weight goes into your heels, be sure to bend forward. You could really exaggerate this. When your hips go forward and the weight goes into your toes, take your head backward a little, your shoulders back a little. And when the weight goes into your heels, take your head forward. So you're bending right in your hip joints, right in the crease in your pants, where when you lift your leg, the pants fold. Okay, uncross and rest for a moment. Cross over. And now try and take your weight in a circle around your crossed feet. And in order to do that, your hips are going to go around your crossed feet in a circle. And it's almost like your belly button is going in a circle around your feet. And go the other direction. I love it when cats get in on the action and they get the lesson too. Okay, and uncross. And now stand with your feet under your hips and transfer your weight from side to side. And see if it's a little easier to keep the weight out toward the fourth toe as you're transferring your weight. You can add that little turn as you transfer. I don't know how many of you have dogs. I was talking with Sue today before class, and she was talking about she really wants to feel stable enough that she can walk her 60-pound dog. And when you're walking a dog, for those of you who do it, you want to keep your weight out toward that fourth toe. So if the dog pulls on you when you're standing like this and there's kind of this force going out to the two sides, it's going to be much harder for the dog to pull you over. Whereas if you let the weight come in onto your big toes, everybody let the weight roll into your big toes, the dog can pull you off your balance much more easily. There's another secret to this for those of you who dog walk, but it's useful for all of us as we walk. If you put one foot in front of the other, so like you're taking a step in walking where one's in front of the other. And in that position, keep your weight out to the fourth. Then nobody can push you over forward or backward. You can kind of feel it in yourself. If you push into the front of the front foot and into the back of the back foot, it's like you are planted and solid. We're much more stable when we're one foot in front of the other. This is something that those of you who have somebody you're at home with can play with. After the class, stand with your feet like this, one in front of the other, and put your, actually we can all do it with ourselves. Stand like this and put one hand out in front of you. And take the other hand and try and pull the hand down, but resist it. And if your weight is out toward the fourth and you're kind of pushing one foot into the other, your arm can resist pressure. Now stand with your feet next to each other and put your arm out and push down on it, and you'll feel it doesn't quite feel as strong. It's like if there was a real heavy pressure coming down there, it would make you want to break in the middle to fold. Anyway, if you have somebody to play with this with afterwards, do it. Or to push against a wall. If you push against a wall with your feet like this, you'll feel you're solider. You know, do you ever help somebody whose car is stuck in the snow or in the dirt, and you want to push that car? Get in the position where you're going to push the car. And your feet, one's in front of the other, and you're pushing through that fourth side of your hand and go ahead and push the car. And feel how you can push the car and come back, that there's a stability transferring yourself from the back foot to the front foot as you push your car. Good. Try it with the other foot back. And one side, you're going to feel, isn't it funny how one side you feel so much more coordinated and the other side is like, oh, how do I do this? So think about the feet, think about the weight underneath the fourth, and push your car. Come back to get another push and push it again. And try pushing through your thumbs and see how you feel kind of weedy. I mean, it's like there's no power there. And then push through not the pinky side, but right under that part of your palm. And it's so weird, even with no pressure, it feels different when you aim to push through different parts of your hand. Alrighty, go for a little walk and see what it's feeling like to walk. How's your sense of stability? The ability of being able to really get over each foot as you're walking. Your sense of how tall you feel. And then come and have a seat for a minute. And as you sit, check in with your sit bones. Bring them out toward the front of the chair so that you're sitting with that same level of attention as when you were standing. And in sitting, with your feet, for a moment, roll them in toward the big toe and feel how it makes your shoulders just collapse a little. It makes you roll in a little bit. And then roll your feet out so the weight is under the fourth again. And see how that just kind of, as soon as you get your weight out toward the fourth, it helps you feel more upright. Many of us tend to collapse on one side more than the other. And go ahead and collapse on your favorite side to collapse your chest. If we all know which it is. And feel, did your foot just automatically roll into the big toe? And then uncollapse. And uncollapse, if you start that uncollapse by rolling your foot, it changes the position of your pelvis and it just naturally makes you more upright. So you can use the sense of collapsing as your canary in the coal mine that says, oh, I got to pay attention to my feet. Take your foot and then, there I am, upright. And with this sense of upright, how's your mood? How do you feel about what you're going to go into doing next today? Is there a little more feeling of get up and go, like, oh, okay, I can do something? Yeah. All right. So any comments, things you observed about yourself, questions? Let's open it up for a couple minutes of discussion. Colleen.
So when I was doing this last week and trying to go over the fourth toe, I felt like an ice skater, kind of.
Yes.
But I was really having trouble until I remembered your cell phone and the tilting of the pelvis and unlocking that.
So,
I thought that I couldn't do it until
this happens.
Yes.
Until your support leg has to lift that corner of your pelvis to pour the the beans into your other leg. Yeah. That's great. Those little cues are so helpful because there's a lot of pieces to manage in our body, but that's one of the essentials. Thank you for.
I was going to ask a question. I have noticed almost like a feeling of a rubber band around like the ball of my foot, and I think I'm wearing slippers and sandals in the house and not regular shoes. And I'm wondering if I'm just getting, not enough arch support, maybe.
So barefoot is usually better for the body. So if barefoot isn't painful, I think being barefoot or light support is better than more. Some of us have misshapen feet enough from whatever injuries or we've had that we need the shoes. But if you're feeling like a tightness around the band, I would work on what we did on Tuesday of getting your fingers in between these bones toward your ankle and rolling your bones a little bit. That plus the pulling the toes and twisting them a little, trying to spread that ball out will probably feel really nice and help with that. Thanks, Colleen. Who else? Questions, comments? All right, then we will end it there. You will need to go to Eventbrite, just a reminder to sign up again to get the link. Mira, is it okay if people email you if they have trouble?
Yes, please do. So we will update Eventbrite over by tomorrow evening for sure. So on next Tuesday morning, you will have a different link. I believe Irene, you don't have a meeting code, a meeting ID number. You just sent me a link and a password.
So if you go into that link, after the J, there's the meeting ID.
There's a meeting ID, okay.
Yeah, it starts with an 8. I mean, I could put it in the chat if you'd like, but if we want everybody to go through Eventbrite, that's probably better.
We will, I'd like for them to have it anyway. I'm going to email everybody.
Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat. And so one way you can get it is, let me just find the chat. There we go. You'll have to copy that and paste it into something else because you're not going to try to.
So I believe from this, and the meeting ID will be 86895.
Yeah, let me just paste just the meeting ID in.
Yeah.
If I can. Whoops.
You can take this. I'll say it as well.
Sorry, I'm just getting it to so it's pastable. The meeting ID and the password. This time I was smarter. I made it all lowercase, NWPF, so we don't have to.
So if anyone's writing down the meeting ID right now, even though we will upload it on Eventbrite and email you separately, the meeting ID for next Tuesday, after you've gone to zoom.us and you join a meeting, the number is 868-956-97828. I'll say that one more time.
Say it a little slower, please.
868-956. Okay. 868-956-97828. 868-956-97828. And the password is lowercase NWPF. That's for Northwest Parkinson's Foundation. Lowercase NWPF. Looking forward to seeing you all on Tuesday. I'll also be sending you an email with a small survey so as we can get your feedback on what more you want to see for us to give feedback on what you want to cover.
That'd be great.
So please do in the survey. Thank you.
And Mira, if you could stay on for a sec, I'd love to just
in
chat with you
case
for a minute.
anyone has a.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.